Hello, Benders. We are live in the Hive. I'm sitting here across from Bridgestone Arena in the Music City Center. We are in the heat of the action. This is like the championship game. Michael, we made it.
I know, we're here, Glenn. It's crazy.
I think General Session's still going on. We had to sneak out so that we could be live in the Hive, but, I mean, they were going strong when we left, wouldn't they?
They absolutely were. I think we even missed the key speaker.
Well, you know what we do for our show. You know, we're there for you. We're bringing it to you live, like I said, in the Hive today. One thing when this first started talking out, I really was liking during the opening ceremonies or whatever, it was great to see a dear friend of the show, Tracy, who always is delivering and is a wonderful host for this event. And like she said, it was great for us to all be back again together. We worked as ambassadors yesterday in the Hive, Michael, and we got to meet all of the great user group leaders that come by. Got a nice red shirt. I mean, yesterday was just phenomenal, wasn't it?
It absolutely was. We even got a sneak peek into the showroom, didn't we?
Yeah, you can go out and see the pre-show where we put that up yesterday. We had a lot of interesting stuff, and we plan on seeing a lot more stuff today. We had a guest lined up, but looks like General Session is going over today, and if they don't make it, that's fine. We'll sit here and we will talk for a little bit about things that we've seen and things that we're excited about. When General Session started out today, Fabio from Enova come on, and one of the things that just blew me away, and if I'm saying these names wrong and butchering them, I apologize, because I never do get them right, but he was showing technology. It looked like virtual reality, to where not only can you see the design, but you could feel it. What was your thoughts on that, Michael?
Honestly, Glenn, I was really inspired by that. You know, that's really I think we're going to see a lot of innovation in that area. And, you know, you get to the point where it's going to be not just on your fingertips, because the one they showed, you've only got it on these three fingers here. But you're talking about full body wearable tech, where you can feel the design you've created and actually have that human touch sensation into what you're making.
Well, when they were talking, I think it was GP, and if I'm wrong, I apologize, but I think it was GP that said that they did like a sensation of flame, to where when he was actually sitting there, that he actually pulled away from it because his mind thought that his hand was burning. I can't even fathom that. Can you?
Yeah, no, that's amazing. I mean, you're talking about a virtual reality stage where they've got a flame in front of you and you can actually feel the heat and the sensation of burning. That's out of this world for me.
Yeah, I mean, I was blown away, because, you know, when we're designing, we're bending all day and working with the sheet metal parts and everything. I mean, how great would it be to when you've got like a drawer bracket or just a drawer itself, and you wanted to open that drawer and you can see inside of it and you could feel, okay, do I have enough room? What's the texture of that? Does it feel too rough? I mean, it just makes the possibilities, it's like you said, it makes them endless.
Yeah, and you talk about going through our manufacturing processes for our process engineers. We could go through and actually build the assembly with our hands in the 3D environment, and I wonder what that could do for us.
Well, you were saying that, and my daughter has been working with, we got on the student program for the virtual 3D for the students, SolidWorks for students, and what I thought about was interesting was it had a matrix, kind of like now we need to get into the 3D platform and get to Maker and all that, learn how to model in it, but the way she was modeling was like what you said. It was a hands-on approach, to where you just had like just a block of clay, and then you started modeling it by pulling pieces out and everything else. So that was a whole different way of designing for me.
Well, yeah, Glenn, they previewed that in the modeling process of JP's belt buckle.
Oh, yeah, that's correct.
Bull on there. They were pulling and extruding the bull from a block of clay, as you're saying.
Yeah, that's a good point. I had forgot about that. We were in Nashville, and they had 3D print. What was it? 3D printed a stainless belt buckle.
Yep.
And it had like a bull cowboy riding. Yeah, rodeo. Yeah, it was definitely a rodeo buckle, and it was very impressive. The detail work on it. I mean, we were sitting back in the cheap seats because we were going to cut out, and even with my bad eyes, I was like, when he come out, I was like, look at that belt buckle. It's very, very impressive.
It was the first thing I saw. He's definitely dressed the part for a Nashville Live.
Yes, he is. I was like, we're going to have to, I know we're working in metal, and that's not the kind that we're doing, but I'm like, I could see some Bender Podcast belt buckles. What do you think?
We better get some belt buckles. I need one. What are you talking about?
Oh, yeah. I was going to bring the cowboy hat today, but I thought less of it because, I mean, it's just, we're local, so we're local. Everybody's walking by the Hive here, excited to be here. We're excited to be back in public, so if I break concentration and look off and wave at somebody, I'm not crazy. I promise you. It's just the convention is full. We got people walking around. There's people everywhere.
Don't let him lie to you. He is crazy.
Yes, very much so. I think
there's a lot of people.
I think there's even paperwork on it.
Oh my.
Now, getting back to, and again, I'm going to say this name wrong, Michael, so you can just, what was it?
Salvador Garcia.
Salvador Garcia. Yeah, I knew I was going to mess that up. The one thing that I really liked about his presentation is the environment has always been important to me. I've always been one that was trying to recycle. I'm trying to make my footprint on the earth a lot less so that it's around for our grandkids, our great-grandkids, and everybody else. So, when he was talking about his ocean-based products, it just blew my mind away when he was talking about like the machines he had. Now, the one thing is, as they pointed out, I gotta put this in here. I did notice you had this state-of-the-art technology in the ocean trying to make everything cleaner, and all these birds were sitting on it. And I'm like, it has just now become like a bird bath or a bird perch or something. I was like, that is just absolutely wonderful.
Nature always triumphs, Glenn.
Nature wins.
In the apocalypse, the foliage will grow over the buildings.
Absolutely, but
the birds will rule.
In some of the design aspects that he was talking about on that, one of the things that they had to deal with was the waves. Like when the waves would come in, the device would go underneath the wave so that it wouldn't damage it. And just the seeing the SolidWorks used with the life sciences, just because see we're mechanical and we're doing manufacturing every day, so just to see that aspect of it, it has always intrigued me. And I mean, I would love, and maybe we'll get to see more of it. Maybe there'll be some more of that in the digital playground. And before we go too far on that, you pointed this out yesterday, and I did not notice it. So again, that was me trying to film and looking at all the squirrels running around, and I just totally missed it. But I think there was a droid in the maker. Was that what we saw?
I believe I saw a droid greeting people.
I don't know what level of intelligence it is. I don't know if it's a killer robot or not, but I definitely think we're going to have to make our way over there and try to talk to this robot.
And it's probably smarter than you and I combined.
That's not saying much.
No, it's not.
Okay. I was going to say, if it was already smarter than me when they turned it on. So, I mean, it may even be smarter than me when it wasn't on. I mean, who knows? Yeah. So going back, Bernard came on, the chairman, and he was had some interesting announcements to put out there.
Yes, he did. What were those, Glenn?
Well, I tell you what, why don't you share it with everybody, because you seem just as excited about it as I did.
I might have been more excited. Glenn had he had a look of composure, and he was very put together, and I'm sitting over there with a giant smile on my face, like a kid who just got told he's going to get his favorite tricycle for Christmas.
See, I don't like change, but in this case, I think I'm going to adapt to it, because it's not forced on me.
You're going to adapt to this one pretty quick, I believe. Once you get let me just start with it. Okay, so starting July 1st, 2023, every seat of SolidWorks is going to come with the availability of using the cloud service. So you will be able to use your products in the cloud, meaning anywhere you are, and also the collaborative features of sharing your designs. So if Glenn has designed something at the office and say I'm out, say I'm traveling or sick, whatever, he can upload that to the cloud, and I can then see where he shared it with me in my user profile on the cloud, and then I can collaborate with him across whatever distance we need to.
Now, I just wanted to make sure, Michael, that I understood it correctly. Now, I'm old school. My hearing's bad. My eyesight's bad. Pretty much, as you pointed out, I got more years behind me than I do in front of me. But did I understand it? If you had like a SolidWorks serial number, then you were going to be able. Now, is that going to include being able to use SolidWorks in the cloud, in the experience, or was that just using the cloud to store your data in?
Glenn, the way I understood it, you'd be able to use it in the cloud, but if it's just storage, I mean, that's still pretty cool in itself.
And again, like I said, please go to the general session, a little nomenclature here. Please go to the general session to get all the information, because like I said, we were sitting in there and we had to hop up before it was over with, but they did say that it was going live. What was it, July 1st? And the other thing is like what you said, a lot of the times, okay, I've got what are you talking about? Let's talk about supply chain, because they talked a lot about supply chain while they were in there. A lot of times I've got a vendor who may or may not use SolidWorks. I may be looking at, as we just got done with our last podcast talking about injection molding, I may have a plastics vendor, or I may have a vendor that maybe we can't make all the sheet metal, or maybe that some of the parts that we need to make exceeds the capabilities of our machinery. That would never happen because we got a state-of-the-art digital playground. But you never know. Technology changes every day. Somebody may demand something that we couldn't do. They may not have the ability to use a SolidWorks file, or they may not have the ability to look at that. They may be, somebody in your local area who you can help out by local, and they can log into that cloud, if I understood it right. You don't even have to, now, to use SolidWorks, yes. But if you wanted to share a file with somebody, if I understood him correctly, that vendor could log on and you could actually share that file with that person instead of having to have that 2D drawing.
Yeah, so that's a big thing they brought up. The way we do things now, most companies do things now, is you send a 2D drawing in a PDF, or maybe even a drawing file like a DWG or something that's multi-platform. But with the 3D Experience platform, if you have a seat of SolidWorks, you should be able to just log in to the 3D Experience platform and see your files that are uploaded to the cloud. So I imagine you'd be able to share some viewing capability with a customer that doesn't have SolidWorks. And I think that's going to be pretty revolutionary for us, especially. So say we design a layout for a convenience store. I mean, if we have it in there and we put a little detail to make it look like you're walking through it, what's that going to be for a customer who's not able to visualize this in their minds like you and I are? I mean, we can visualize the 3D layout and what it's going to be, but a customer who's maybe more of a marketing or a salesperson or even an owner of this convenience store, they're not going to be able to do that as well as us.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. The one thing that I wanted to get back to, again, I apologize. I do not have my notes. We did not know what was going to be on the agenda before we came in today, so I tried to take pictures with my phone and make notes. And like I said, if you know me, I'm always walking around with my whiteboard, and I've got everything set up. One of the things, and I'm interested what your take was on this, I really like that, where they were showing like parts from Model Mania, and one of the things that they always do is on the Model Mania parts is that after you go in and everybody does the competition and the winner is named, they come back and they do, okay, who was, what was the best solve for this? What was the best fix for this part? Now, I noticed that Bernard was showing that he had a design of a past Model Mania part, and after the design was done, then they had an analyzer that then went in and analyzed the part to kind of show you, okay, this is how I drew it, this is the features that I done, and then went back and took the part that you designed, analyzed it, and if I understood it right, it like made it better, correct?
So, Glenn, what you're talking about is the machine learning capabilities of the 3D Experience platform. So, basically what it's able to do is you can import a part. It can be just solids, it looked like, for one of their examples. They 3D scanned a part and dropped it into the platform. Now, it will then use machine learning to break down the least number of features you need to create this part. So basically using AI to go through and take out all the boss extrudes and the cut extrudes, and it will actually make your part, but it won't just be an imported body anymore. When you do this, it will create the features within itself, and you can go back and edit those and change however you need to. Is that the way you understood it as well?
Yeah, I mean, it was interesting, and again, we were trying to kind of consume all of this, make mental notes because we knew we were going to be going live, and but yeah, I mean, some of the stuff that I looked at it was just in the adaptive where he was talking about the part learning, like taking a part that you had found that had like, I think the example he used is. I think Manoush used this in that he had said that he had tried to his dishwasher, yeah. Mm-hmm. His dishwasher had broke down, and he basically took the parts, and then he took this learning technology from the broken part, and then basically from the information that he had, fixed that part, recreated that part instead of buying a new one. And it's unbelievable, some of the stuff that you see.
So another thing they mentioned was self-healing. So yes. I believe that the software can re-stitch together what a part used to be.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was getting at. Yeah, you put it out a lot better than I did. I was trying to think of a way how to explain that, but yeah, I mean, that's exactly right. That's exactly what I was seeing. And the self-healing of that, I mean, I don't know how many times that I've got a part and it's been a design. Like I said, if you listen to us, you know that I've been designing for 30 years. Michael's reaching the 5-year mark. I think you're there, aren't you?
I'm almost 6 now.
Oh, 6? Okay, yeah. So we always get those designs that come across your desk or whatever where you've got a part that failed that you put out years ago. It doesn't matter what it is, but we've all had them. They've all come across our desk, and we've taken that part and we've looked at it, and it's kind of like, okay, I don't have any history on this. What does it do? And the good thing from that is, and I can see a lot of uses from that with that self-healing, if you know the assembly that it's going into and you take that part and you just recreate it quickly. Well, you know, just from us, just talking like a sheet metal part, if I recreate a part, the hardest part is getting it designed, because once you've got it designed and got a flat pattern, you send it off to your CNC, whether it be a laser, a CNC punch press. I mean, whatever you're doing, I mean, it reads it, you send it out, and you've got that part made. And like when we were going through on the sheet metal stuff, even if you had like a flat pattern, I think you had played around with some of that on the flat pattern, where you take the flat pattern that you've got an existing flat pattern, and then you bend the part up from that.
Absolutely, Glenn. Yeah, that was one of the big things I did when we moved from Inventor to SolidWorks. Yeah. So you can get the flat pattern, but the K factors and the bend allowances are different between the two softwares. So you kind of got to work from the folded part and ignore the flat pattern, even if there were things designed on the flat pattern. That was a little tricky.
Yeah, and I mean, we've seen a lot of times, and I mean, even from the old stuff when we were doing the hand drawings, because I mean, you didn't come from a time when there were hand drawings or whatever, but
no.
You know, I very much came from a time when there was hand drawings, and you're talking about fast to market. You didn't have a CAD program like SolidWorks to where you sit down and sketched it out, even 2D back then, or wireframe. So what you had you had, you know, some old designer like me. At the time I was young, it was new technology, I knew how to use it, but what you would have on that drawing was somebody would have sketched that out on a piece of paper of the flat pattern, and then they would have given the brake operator a few notes going, okay, this bend's 30 up and this one's 30 up and the next one's 20 down or whatever. And so you had the basic shape of the flat pattern, because that's what you needed. When you're making the parts, you had to have that flat pattern, and you just went with it from there. So very, very interesting stuff. And he was talking about, you know, like digital twins and everything like that. I think there was all kind, and the one thing that he mentioned was working together, and that really stuck with me, because that's kind of the philosophy that we use, and I hope everybody out there is using that in their manufacturing too, is the whole working together, because together you're so much stronger. And just with the collaborative abilities, you think about it, okay, we're sitting there, we're working on something, and we get a partner. Now, we won't use any names of some of the partners or whatever, but we are sitting there working on a project, and we're trying to do this design for client A. And they've got a definite opinion of how they feel about that. They want to know how it looks. They want to know how it feels. And we can put that right out there on the cloud to them. They can go look at it real time, instead of, you know, like they were talking about in the session today about, okay, well, and the one thing that I hate is email trail. You'll get 50 different emails coming across, and it is very hard. And I'm not saying this about from the client or even from the engineering standpoint. It is very hard when you're trying to get that information, your passion, you know, this is my product, this is what I want it to do. How do I get that information out of my mind into yours? And then how do you receive it? And since the beginning of time, it's always been with a picture. So even more now when you've got that actual 3D model that they can get in there and turn, especially even if you've done like a concept to where you've put a concept out there. And speaking of concepts, that's the one thing that I was very excited about looking at this week. The rendering, as you know, I'm very into the rendering. The reason why, and let's just talk about like picture perfect rendering, I think was the one episode that we had put on our docket of things that we were going to try to do. When you're sitting in front of a customer and they've got their vision of this wonderful work of art, and it no matter what you're designing, I don't care what it is to you, when you get done with it and you walk by with it, whether it's, you know, in a store, if it's something that's in someone's home, doesn't matter what you're designing, you get that feeling of, that's mine, I created that. And it's very hard to get that information across to somebody when back in the old days we were trying to do like 2D sketches on a piece of paper to show like a finished product, and then you try to color it up the best that you could and send it to them, and they'd be like, yeah, that's kind of what I was thinking. But with Visualize, you get the ability to actually have this product setting in front of them. And then sometimes, I'll be honest with you, we do such a good job of rendering sometimes. It's like, man, this thing looks better than it did when it comes off the showroom floor. But it's just absolutely wonderful. Hey, we've got a guest with us. Michael is going to have to try to get up here for a second, and I'll bring our guest in. As usual, I forgot to pack an extra XLR cable. Yeah. Yeah, in my massive ability of packing, I forgot to put an extra XLR cable. I got the mic, but I didn't get the extra cable. So we're joined by, and if I say your name wrong, please forgive me, but it's Mike Puckett, and you are over the certifications for SolidWorks?
Yeah, I run the technical certification program for SolidWorks. I must say, though, after hearing your podcast, your voices are opposite for the way you guys look.
Oh, okay.
I expected you to have the deeper voice and you to have the higher voice, but it's backwards. So
no, and the thing about it is when we're doing the podcast, when I didn't start out to become an audio engineer, but I've developed into one. I sometimes have to lower him because his voice is just it's very powerful.
Yeah, like I said, it's so odd to see, but you guys have great voices for podcasts.
We also got great faces for podcasts.
Yeah, I didn't want to say that, right? I didn't want to say that.
Oh, we know it. We're fine. Yep. One thing, and I'm glad that you're here, as we've collaborated over texting and everything. And one of the things that we've kind of tried to do, and how our podcast was born, was we were in the schools a lot. So Michael was in the university when we hired him, and when our user group was in there, we were trying to get that information across. We had a lot of students come in. When COVID hit, we weren't able to do that anymore. So we developed the podcast to where we basically took our user group and we put it out there. Michael himself, when he was in university, didn't know about the user groups, and they didn't know about certifications and everything. And so I thought, as we were starting out the podcast, we're still getting our feet, on stable ground, trying to learn what we're doing. We sort of tried to do it like our first episode was about settings, and then we went into sheet metal because that's what we do. But sheet metal is a certification. And it's one of those certifications. So a lot of what we're going to do is I always say, try to be the expert that you are. We're going to try to step people through on how to get to that point to be that certification. One thing I always ask is, before we get really into it, just tell me first a little bit about you personally, and then you can get into professionally about all the wonders of the certification at SolidWorks.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate that. And I really don't want to be here to try and sell anything, but I've been in the SolidWorks realm. I used to say SolidWorks world, but that's too a throwback to the conference, right? So I've been in the SolidWorks realm since when did I first see SolidWorks? Probably like in 2000. I want to say 2003. Or earlier, let's say 2000. I actually went and took an AutoCAD class. I learned AutoCAD 14, and then I was working nights at the time, so I'd sit down when everybody was gone during my lunch or whatever, and play with AutoCAD. And I saw this thing called SolidWorks on there. I go, what's this SolidWorks thing? And so again, this is like in the very early 2000s. Podcasts weren't even a thing then.
No,
there was no YouTube, and so I quickly discovered that while AutoCAD was cool, SolidWorks had this whole thing called the third dimension that really made things click with me more. So, and I was in the tool and die trade, building parts for thermoplastic injection molds, and I quickly caught on to see this. This is usable for us. And at the time, the design department in that trade, they were doing what I called, or I termed, 2.5D. So anything that touched plastic was done in 3D in SolidWorks, and then all the mold frame around it was done in AutoCAD. And there was no real reason why, other than you had these older engineers that just liked 2D CAD so much that they couldn't pry them away from it. But we quickly started to see where that suffered when a mold base would show up, and there was a long water line that had a mounting bolt hole, that thread that went right into the water line. Because in 2D, everything looks kind of okay, right?
Yes.
But until you can rotate it and actually see that it intersects, well, then there's a problem. So anyway, so
I'm with you. I'll come up when my first designs. When I first started designing, like I've been in the field for 30 years. When I first started designing, we were doing everything on the drawing board, like you're talking about. We were doing gear and fixture designs. We were doing them on the drawing board, and I don't think people today, when they sit down, whatever platform they're using, especially the best of them with SolidWorks, but I don't think they realize how far we've came from those days. Like what you were talking about, when you've got a 2D drawing and you're trying to look at that, it's not forgiving. You can't, like what you said, you can't see if there's an interference, or you can't necessarily see everything that's going on.
Yeah. So yeah, it was just amazing to me, and so I knew. I was running EDM machines, if you're familiar with the electrical discharge machines, sticking my hands in 50-gallon tanks of kerosene every day. And I quickly discovered that at the time I thought it'd be cool to have a job where I could sit in front of a computer and go on the internet to work.
Yeah.
So that tells you how long this was. Anyways, I ended up at a company running the engineering department. When I first went over, I told the guy, I said, if we're going to do this, it's got to be all in 3D. We have to use SolidWorks. And he says, fine, sounds good to me. He said, I don't expect anything else less. And so I did that for years, and then ran a user group in LA, in the Southern California area, met everybody at SolidWorks, and then there was a job opening on the certification team that I didn't think I was qualified for, and approached the guy about it, and he says, look, if you want the job, it's yours, qualifications don't matter, you have the experience that we're looking for.
Yeah, and that's a wonderful thing to say right there about experience and everything. That speaks volumes. So like you can sit down and you can went through the theory and everything, but until you get your hands dirty and being in the field working on things, there's just so many things you don't know. Yeah,
I mean it was the opportunity of a lifetime for me. I remember going to SolidWorks World for a few years before I joined the company, thinking how awesome it would be to work for. It was a dream kind of, but it never seemed possible. And then all of a sudden, it was January 5th, 2009, I was walking into the West Concord office in Massachusetts as an employee for the first time.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah, and it's been a dream ever since. It's been fun, and the last 3 years have been tough. I walked into general session this morning early and to watch everybody run in, and it was a great moment that basically just missed for the last 3 years.
Oh, it was, and that's one of the things that I had told Michael. Don't get me wrong, we have absolutely loved doing the virtual. I mean, you still get the feel, you still get to go through it and everything, but just the interactions that you've had, like Heather from DriveWorks, I got to sit down and talk with her. Eric from the user group, we sat down and talked. I mean, right over here in the Hive, we all just kind of sat down as ambassadors yesterday, and it's like you said, you just had a moment to where it was like, and I think Eric said yesterday, and I laughed till I cried. He's like, I think on everybody's badges, you should just have like your Zoom picture, because it's like that's all you've seen for the past 3 years. So, just have like your Zoom profile, so that way you know everybody. But the certifications are very important to me, and they always have been through the very beginning. And we've had a lot of engineers come through, and they've moved on or they've stayed. And one of the things that I've always tried to do and promote is to promote the certifications. And I really, really love what you're doing with the certificate. First of all, great job on what you're doing. And when you hold a title like the CSWE or whatever, you've earned it. I mean, a lot of these things, you go out here and you think, okay, well, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to take this, and, am I really an expert? And one thing I can say with your all certifications and everything, you are an expert. Once you go through that process, and I know I don't even remember, I think 2013 is when I took mine, so I know it's changed a lot since then. Is it 2-part now for the CSWE?
No, it's still single part. Dating back to 2010, I'm aging myself. 2010 is when 2010 or 11, one of those two, 2011 I think is when we launched it. I wrote the original one. And it was specifically wrote for a reason. If you know who Jeff Marisola is, it was at SolidWorks Worlds 2009 or something like that. He was complaining about how easy the CSWP exam had become.
Right.
And I remember that night telling him, okay, well, I'm going to write a tougher exam, and you get to be the first one to take it. And he said, okay. Well, so then it was that was a thing. So, but it's still a single part exam. We did rewrite it. One of the guys on my team rewrote it about 2 years ago. It's still pretty much the same thing, but it's an entirely different approach to the exams that we'd ever taken before.
And I think I saw you put out on Twitter, you're doing it all in the platform now, right?
So this year, it's a relative statement. So this year at 3D Experience World, all of our hands-on computers are essentially, they're all running 3D Experience SolidWorks. And so we were curious if we could even do that and if we needed desktop SolidWorks in some of those rooms. Well, it was like, well, let's just do it. And so yesterday, I think it was 98.6% of the exams that were taken yesterday were taken using 3D Experience SolidWorks. And when we asked the people, when they came out of the room, saying, you know, how the test was, stuff like that, we asked them another question, is, did you know you were using 3D Experience SolidWorks? And they looked at us like crazy, like we were crazy, and said, no, I didn't.
Yeah.
I said, well, what did you think of it? It's like, well, it was just like desktop SolidWorks.
Yeah.
And that's what was the key. Is 3D Experience SolidWorks. I know we've all heard the term 3D Experience for years now, but even we were surprised that it's just desktop SolidWorks with some connectors and some connections to the platform if you want to use them. But for the most part, I mean, it's SolidWorks that everybody loves.
Well, what I had noticed is, as my laptop is older, I've kind of very used to this one, and I really like it. But it's probably 5-6 years old, so it's not as fast as some of the ones that are out now. And I had noticed from using the Maker and stuff, where we have been doing stuff with the user groups where we could get on Maker and kind of play around with it. I had noticed here, even just recently, that when I ran SolidWorks through the platform, that I was drawing parts quicker with that than I was doing on my actual desktop on this PC.
Yeah, it's. I mean, when you have the processing power of an online, rendering farm, whatever you want to call it, processing farm, it's got to be faster, right? And so, you're talking about like the X apps and stuff like that.
Right.
That the performance comes from, a server farm somewhere.
Yes.
And it's got its quirks, of course, but when you're, with the rendering tool, you see the little squares dancing around, right? Imagine seeing thousands of those things going around, right?
Well, I was talking to Michael. One of the awards I had won is that they done the rendering contest. So I got to be on the splash screen for the beta. So I had won the contest for that back when we were in San Diego or whatever. I don't even remember when that was. I think it was like 2012, 2013, something like that.
2012 sounds about right.
2012,
yep.
Yeah. So I had won that rendering contest, and it's like you said, that was one of those deals to where you do a simple rendering. And you just go get a cup of coffee, walk around, talk to some of the people on the shop, and come back, and you're like, oh, okay, we're 48% there. But yeah, the rendering farms, I can't even imagine.
Yeah, the downside is that as engineers and designers, unfortunately, there's no more coffee breaks.
Right.
You just get the two like everybody else does now, right?
Right, exactly.
So we, and so this week or this year, we're celebrating the 25th anniversary of CSWP. It's hard to believe that we released that exam 25 years ago.
Yeah.
I was looking for my iPad, but I have all the stats on there. But we're quickly approaching 700,000 certified users around the world, and we protect the value of the certifications the most. We try not to give them away. We try to make it accessible, but we don't give them away because we want the value to be there. You mentioned students a lot. And so part of our education program is, we sell education software to schools, and we're probably one of the last companies that still charges for it. Our competitors all charge for it, but what they don't include is the certifications.
Right.
And to a student, especially like high school or college, graduating with an industry recognized certification that they didn't have to pay for is key to them. It's huge.
Well, from my standpoint, being a CAD administrator and being the person that after everybody kind of does the interviews with the designers and stuff and they come in, I know I'm going to be the one that's training them how to use SolidWorks and working with them. And if they sit down and they've got that certification, I feel a lot more comfortable. Not saying I would not hire somebody over that, but I know when they give me that reference that, hey, I've got that CSWA or I've got that CSWP or I've got that CSWE, I know that, you've put the work in, you've got a lot going on. I know you know how to use the software and you know how to use it well.
That's the key point that we always make. That if you hire somebody with certification, chances are they're not going to know how to make the stuff that you make.
Right.
But they know how to use the tools that you use to make the stuff that you make. And that's what's important. You don't have to send them out to get trained.
Yes.
They can come in, hit the ground running from day one and using the tools. And so that's what certifications are about.
Well, actually, you was here, I'll ask you about that. I had noticed that, and I don't know if it's just the local universities around here, I had noticed that a lot of the engineering departments, are you all offering the CSWA, like you said, for free for students that are all?
Yeah, so as long as the school is on subscription with us, it's funny, it started off with just CSWA. In fact, the program was called the CSWA Provider Program.
Right. Right.
So when I took over managing the team, the first thing I know is like, why is it just CSWA? It should be everything. So it's like, okay, well, how do we rename the program now? Because it's tied to one thing, right?
Right.
So now it's just the certification provider program. They can offer every certification that we offer in our catalog, which is over it's 34 exams now, even including CSWE. The CSWE has a little bit of different requirement. We ask that the teacher, the actual teacher, write a recommendation to us of why the X student should be able to take the exam.
And I get that. That.
And that's because we want to know that A, the student's prepared, but B, that the teacher, if the teacher does that, that shows us that they have taken enough interest in that student's success that they're likely going to pass it. And that's part of why the CSW has such a high pass rate, not because it's easy, but because by the time somebody gets to that level to be able to take that exam, they're engaged in the software, they know how to use it, and they're going to pass it.
Well, the prerequisites, I'm assuming they're the same as they was when I took them, but you don't just go take like one and then move to another one. You have to have, what was it, 5? Is it still 5?
Yeah, 4 of the 5 advanced topic exams, which are specifically stretched around or spread around, that you're going to have to take one that's outside your comfort zone.
Right.
So it's going to be surfacing, sheet metal, or weldments. Those are going to be outside your comfort zone.
Yeah, surfacing for me was, because the weldments I didn't really have that big of a problem with because we're dealing with that. The sheet metal, I was like, oh yeah, I got this one. And it turned out it wasn't as easy as I thought it would be. The sheet metal, and I think we worked a little bit, the company I work for, Panos, and I think we worked a little bit, Avelino, does he still work?
Yeah, he's still here. He's hobbling around here. Yep.
I think Avelino had touched base with us about some of the stuff about, they're like, okay, we know you all are doing sheet metal all day, kind of look at this, and is it where we need to be with it? And I'm like, oh yeah. I mean, some of the stuff that you got on the exam is not, it's there and we use it in the back of our mind, but some of the stuff is kind of like you got your CAD administrator, you set it and forget it, like bin tables and different things. Yep. You set them and you forget about them. But yeah, it was very challenging.
Yeah, we follow the philosophy that SolidWorks has held for decades really now. That is to listen to our customers, and they're the source of the material that we need, and to listen to them and put together exams that are relative to what they do.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm on Michael right now because what we're going to do with this podcast is we're kind of trying to work toward being that expert and try to get him to get his CSWA and get everything, get him lined out so that he can get all of the information that he needs.
Yeah, well, so and while we're live here, I didn't bring you your shirt.
Okay.
CSW event registration doesn't open till 11.
Gotcha.
So another 15 minutes, but I do have your wristband here.
Oh wow!
For tonight. So this will get you into tonight's event.
Okay.
And so you can put that on,
and
but do stop by and get your shirt.
I will.
Now, whether you want to leave Michael alone by himself tonight or not, this is totally up to you. So if you want, you and I together, we can sponsor and let him join us at the party tonight. But that's up to you. And if I don't know if there's any listeners or whatever, but we can kind of make the decision and put the pressure on him. Or if you want to be waving from the bus window while he's standing there watching you leave, like I had to do the first year I failed the exam, didn't get to go to the event. Well,
you was talking about that. That is good. Like what we had talked about, you had talked about the event tonight. That is another perk of when you come to these, of the things that you get to do, the different locations. Like, where was it tonight? It was at we're
at Pins Mechanical, which is a really cool venue. It's an old Gibson guitar, I think, distribution building here in town. Gibson Guitar is a SolidWorks customer, by the way.
Yes, they are.
Which is really cool tie-in.
Yeah, we were lucky in the younger years of our user group. We had a contact, and I think he is the Nashville user group leader now. Rudy, I may not be saying his name right.
Could be, yep.
He's the Nashville user group leader, and he sent me an email for my user group at Southern Kentucky user group. He's like, hey, would y'all like to go to Gibson? And I'm like, yeah, we want to go to Gibson. And we had no idea. We had no idea they were using SolidWorks. We had no idea. So we walked down there, and I think Richard Doyle was over, I think Dan is now over the user groups, but Richard at that time was. So he flew down, and they made a special SolidWorks guitar for them, and we were at that meeting, and I was just blown away by them using SolidWorks to make a guitar. But yeah, I did know that they were because we had toured their plant.
Yeah, I'm always amazed by the customers in the industries that we have. Today, the Ring Doorbell founder and CEO was on stage. As I was just walking out to come down here, he was finishing up his segment, and he says, it's a bit surreal. I'm kind of like the kid that watched the NFL football games when I was younger, and now I'm playing in the Super Bowl. He's also, to be a SolidWorks user and be up here on stage was kind of surreal.
Yeah, it is.
To come to that full circle.
And we feel the same way. It's just like I've experienced multiple worlds, and this is Michael's first. And it's like you said, just to get to see everything right in front of you and everything else, and the certifications. I can't brag on you enough. You've done a wonderful job.
No, we appreciate that, and it's a great community of people, and we love what the certifications do for people. And that, like I said, that's number one to us. The SolidWorks certification program is very mature. We have a very good portfolio of exams available, and now the focus really is on building out the exams for 3D Experience SolidWorks, and then on to the Works portfolio. And
well, I know it myself. I mean, I wear my CSWE badge proud. Anybody I'm talking to that I talk about I'm using SolidWorks, I'll be like, hey, I'm a CSWE, and I know every CSWE I know feels the same way. I mean, it's like what you was talking about being surreal. I mean, you are proud of that. You're proud when you reach that goal.
Yeah, you should be, because of the work to get there. I mean, the exam, like I said earlier, once you get to the point where you can take the exam and you take the exam, it's easy, relatively speaking. But it took a lot of work to get there.
Yes,
as well.
It did.
And I guess I'm kind of proud to be the person that originally wrote it, and that changed things from the CSWP event to the CSWE event. And,
yes.
And someday, likely it's going to be the CSWE, the Certified SolidWorks or Certified 3D Experience SolidWorks Expert exam event.
While you're here, and if you've got to go, just tell us how you
I'm good on time.
Just do the mic drop and just leave. I mean, at any time. But I had noticed that, and in the experience, I noticed on the exams, you're doing like experience exams too, right?
Yep, 3D Experience exams. Yep.
What exactly does that entail?
So it's just the same as we did with the desktop product. Again, it's a 25-year-old program that's done well. I can claim, I think, I think we can easily say that. So the recipe is there. So why not do the same thing for 3D Experience and build on the back of the name of SolidWorks, because it is a SolidWorks product by the SolidWorks R&D team and the SolidWorks crew. Recently, my team and other team, we got moved over from the corporate side back over to the SolidWorks brand side, and so our charge now is to help promote 3D Experience SolidWorks, and it's kind of fun to be back and talking about SolidWorks and stuff again. And today in general session was all about SolidWorks again, and it almost feels like the last 2 years was kind of like a reset for us in a way. But they're great products too, and even the X apps are really good products.
Yes,
I'm a Mac user. I hate lugging around a laptop PC because the power brick weighs more than my MacBook Pro.
Yeah, I told Michael, I think with carrying around all the equipment for our live, I'm like, I think I'm going to blow out like L4 in my back trying to carry all this stuff.
But now I have CAD tools available to me that I can use on a Mac in a browser. The 3D Experience platform, my entire team, all four of us, actually there's 5 of us, a girl in Japan, we're all 3D Experience champions. So which is, internally we've been using the platform for a good part of 2.5-3 years now. And I can honestly say that there's tools that we use on the platform that enable us to do what we can do, that if we didn't have them, we wouldn't be able to do so much.
Right.
And it's kind of great being kind of like the pioneers internally as well. My new boss, who's basically champions, the 3D Experience SolidWorks, stuff like that, isn't a 3D Experience SolidWorks, or is a 3D Experience champion. And so it was nice to do the introductory meeting with him saying, my entire team are champions for 3D Experience. So I should probably get to that level someday.
Right.
So now my team's going to get to train him, to do that. So it's good. But yeah, so again, the exams are great, and they're going out into schools as schools start using 3D Experience products, again, to enable schools and at no cost to them.
Right. And that's huge.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because when you start investing into some of this, like I said, I haven't been in the game. I haven't taken a test since I got my CSWE, but at one point, they could get pretty expensive as far as when you were taking it.
Especially if you're a student. $100 for a student,
yes,
is a lot of money.
It is.
So, it's all the other CAD companies that are going in there offering free software because they claim they care about the students. If you really care about the students, stop charging them for your certification exams. Give them away like we do.
Yeah.
And enable those students to go on and be successful. And, we get emails all the time from young people thanking us for the certification exam because it helped them succeed. And it's like, we just gave you a tool. You're the one that ran with it and made it happen. Thanks for inspiring us. But it's always
well, that's
nice
the
to
one
get
thing
those.
that I had told Michael too, is it give me a lot of confidence as a designer when I sit down and I pass those certifications and stuff. It's like, I did this. I got the certification. I met these goals. I got it done, and look at what I can do now.
Yeah, exactly. We're issuing digital badges now for all the 3D experience exams will have digital badges. It's too cost prohibitive to go back and issue 700,000 CSWA digital badges. Right. And I forget what the number is, CSWP. It's up there as well, 300,000 or something like that. So, but all these new 3D experience certifications offer a digital badge, it's basically like an electronic PDF that has metadata and stuff behind it. Right. But, it's relative to young people today, and it means a lot to them.
Well, I know I have printed off every one of my certifications, put them in a frame, and they're hanging in my office. So they're every one displayed. I'm very proud of them.
Yeah, I've done the same thing. They hang on my wall behind me when I'm on Zoom calls and stuff like that. So, but no, to be proud of them, and it's fun. Again, like you said, tonight is the best night for me at the conference each year, and secondary to general sessions, one of the things I miss most was just being in a room full of certified experts that are there and just having a good time.
Right.
Throwing that event is like an honor and a privilege to our team, getting to do that and just be surrounded by such smart people.
Well, and the brotherhood too. I remember the last one I was at live was, like I said, in San Diego. I think we said 2012, and I think it was at the Padres Stadium or whatever. Yep. And then we went up, and we got to go up there, and everybody was just kind of sitting around. It's like you said, then you're having all these collaborative, you're talking to this person who may work for this company or that company, and you leave and you're like, wow, I'm in this group with these guys. This is amazing.
Yeah, at SOLIDWORKS World 2014 in Phoenix. I don't know how I can rattle these off sometimes, given my age and stuff like that. We were at it was an event venue, but it was owned by a guy who was like a pro-am boxer. We had a boxing ring in there, and I had just taken over managing the team at the beginning of that year, and they interviewed me, and I remember, for the conference video, and I remember describing it as like, that event is like, let's say you're going to start this gigantic company, and you need a team of engineers. Those are the people in that room that you want to hire. Right. And imagine the collective knowledge in that room, what all of us together, what we could design.
Oh, I know. It's unbelievable. Michael was all excited yesterday about robotics, and getting to see the robots and everything. And I'm like, yeah, I'm like you. I'm like, who knows what we could create? And I'm excited for his generation because we were the backbone when we were coming up. We were doing the 2D drawings. We moved over. I was one of the first people to come on to like a DOS-based system, get away from the drawing boards, and everybody was looking at it like, what is this? And then to see them where they're actually using the 3D modeling, and we went through, like on our last episode, he had never done like an injection molded part before, so we went through doing the whole core and the cavity and everything, and no more. And like I said, I hadn't been in it in a long time. No more than we had released that, because we're going to do a video kind of on the YouTube channel about how we're going to do a walkthrough on it. A friend of mine called me back and they're like, "You've not used mold tools in a while, have you?" I'm like, no, I haven't. And they're like, well, you can do every bit of that inside of the part now instead of trying to go out to the assembly and do all the stuff that you were doing. And I'm like, okay, well, I need to look at this. And then me and Michael sat down after we'd already, posted up the podcast, and we sit down and we went through that. We're doing all of it inside of the part, and we were like, oh man.
Yeah. So and now you're getting into my old realm of plastic injection mold design, and it's if you're designing molds for frisbees, golf balls, it's simple. But in the United States, unfortunately, that stuff's all made overseas, where labor's cheap, right?
Right.
And the molds can be quick and dirty. We were doing the hard stuff, medical device stuff, and shut-off surfaces that were tolerances or plus nothing minus 0.2 of a thousandth of an inch. Yeah. And plastic that would flow at 7 or 0.8 of a thousandth of an inch. So holding these and machining parts to those tolerances. So, but it's a lot of fun. It's one thing I do say is I miss. Since working at SOLIDWORKS, I just don't feel like I'm making anything anymore. Yeah. And I
had wondered about that, because that's one of the things that Michael and myself have went through with the supply chain and everything the way it's been the past couple of years. Everybody's had to put on different hats. So where I would be sitting down every day to SOLIDWORKS, designing parts and doing this and doing that, now, okay, our whole CNC lines down because, we don't have a CNC programmer, or we don't have a person to do this, or we don't have a machinist or somebody. So I've had to kind of take on some of those roles of, okay, not only do I have to design a part, now I've got to go get it on the laser, get production running, just because we got to keep the line running. So, and that's one of the things that I had felt when I got away from it is by not being every day creating something. I'm like you, I miss that.
Yeah. Yeah, well, if you ever want to talk shop or need advice on plastic injection molding, I'm always happy to chat about it.
Well, I probably should have talked to you before we put that last one out, because apparently I was doing the Stone Age like what was done like 10 years ago. So.
Well, I don't know who's around, but a dirty secret of SolidWorks is mold designers don't use the mold tools in SolidWorks. I never did. In fact, when I joined the team, my boss at the time, Jeremy, said, "Okay, the first exam you're going to write is on mold tools." I go, well, nobody uses mold designers. Don't use the mold tools unless you're designing simple stuff,
right?
Where the parting lines, those features work awesome.
Yes, and the parting lines is what I was getting back with.
But if you saw some of the parts that we were making molds for with compound slide angles and stuff like that for shutoffs, it doesn't work. But but it's fun stuff. So
yeah, but that was the one thing, and the parting line was the one thing, and then with the surfacing, and then you do the tooling to where it then goes and then does the core and then the cavity, and puts that all in there inside of the part, and then when I went and right-clicked and saved out with the saved bodies, and it generated all the different parts, I was like, this is just unbelievable. I mean, I was like a kid in a candy store.
Yeah, and that's how I learned servicing, though. I'll
be honest with you, out of all of your tests, and maybe it's just because me and I didn't work with it every day, the surfacing, you talk about being out of your comfort zone. When I first started studying for that, I was like, oh man, I'm never going to get this. I'm never going to get this.
That's the hardest exam to pass. That's the toughest exam that we have.
It kicked my butt. I mean, I'm not going to lie about it. When I sit down and looked at it, and I was doing all of that, and I was sitting down, and I went and I bought a book. It was probably about that thick on surfacing, and I went through the whole thing, and then I took the exam, and like you said, after you had done the research, after you had done the back work on it, the work getting to that point before you take the exam, then you take the exam, and you're like, oh, okay, I got it. I knew what I was doing.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, so I've always called servicing like the black magic of CAD for SolidWorks. But it's once you unlock it in your brain and understand what it does, there was situations where when I was creating, cavities, stuff like that, or, different parts, that there was no solid tool available, no feature in the solid tools available.
Right.
And the only way to do it was through a series of surface tools. And I used to do a presentation at user group meetings about showing how doing some simple things that were like you needed surfacing tools. There was no way to do it with using solid tools. And once you can unlock like the magic behind surfacing, then there's nothing you can't do in CAD.
We may definitely have to get you on a Zoom meeting with one of our user groups to show us some of that magic behind the surfacing, because Michael's, every one of us, when we go to start talking about surfacing, we're just kind of like your eyes glaze over and you're like, oh, what is this magic, like you said. But yeah, the surfacing definitely was the hardest one for me.
Yeah, and I'd love to. And I mean, if anything this week's going to show us, it's time to be back together.
Yes.
So I'll even come out and I'll dust off that presentation and update it for the new version of 3D Experience SolidWorks, and I would love to come out and do that. So
yeah, I mean, we'll have to. Well, one thing I had talked about Dan and everything is we're not in Nashville, we're in Bowling Green, which is about 45 minutes. Now you went through there coming back from Louisville.
Yeah, and it seemed like the longest city I've ever been through. It was like we were in Bowling Green on the 65, I think.
65.
For like, it almost felt like an hour.
Yeah.
I mean, it just never seemed to end.
Well, Bowling Green is just like everything else. It's getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. But our claim to fame is we've got the Corvette Museum, and we've met the Corvette plant down there. So it is a wonderful, if you've never been able to tour it or whatever, it's a wonderful place to go to.
Yeah, we almost were going to, I couldn't find any information on tours. We almost were going to do it, but
they haven't been doing them because of COVID and everything. They shut every single thing down. And what they did is, and again, I don't know the affiliation with it, and I don't want to get in trouble for saying anything about it, but I think the Corvette Museum is not necessarily tied to the Corvette plant.
It didn't seem like it.
And it looks like they've got a lot of cars and stuff that are nostalgia. Mm-hmm. Like I think the Batmobile is going to be there. They're bringing it down, the original one from the Tim Burton movie. Oh. And we're like, I cannot wait to see that. And but the plant tours just started up, I want to say maybe this year. It may have been sooner, but I know they had just started them back. And when you go through and do the plant tour and see the Corvettes, and one of the things that, speaking about the Corvettes, I'm a car guy. I mean, I love racing, love everything about cars. And to see that finished, like you can have that car is drove out and put out in the Corvette Museum when you buy it. You can pick it up actually, and you have somebody come through, and then they've got the track behind it.
Oh, okay.
They've got like a test track.
Yep.
And it's like a road course. And you can get out there, and it's however much you want to spend with your money. If you will take it wide open and take it into the corner. But yeah, it's amazing to see some of the stuff. So, I mean, that would be a good trip for y'all to come down.
Yeah, definitely.
I think Avelino come down and visit us once. He was doing, does he ride motorcycle?
Yeah, he did.
Okay.
And he had he was in an unfortunate accident about
I hate to hear that.
about 3 or 4 years ago now, and he lost his leg. He lost his right leg from just above the knee down. So he's here, but so the guy rocks better now and is more active and athletic with a prosthetic, than he was before. I don't know how he does it. I broke my leg about a year ago, and I have a 22-inch long titanium rod in my femur now. And that guy he's more active than I am now, and I have my full leg. So we joke back and forth about it. But yeah, so he was the motorcycle. He probably came down. He used to get down that area. But yeah,
I remember he did like a tour to where he was visiting all the user groups or whatever.
Yep.
Like he just took out from wherever he lived. I can't remember now. Was it up close to Boston?
He's in Pennsylvania.
Yeah. And he just kind of like done the tour where he was going down, kind of seeing the user group. Stopped at Louisville, which has a really nice user group.
Yep.
And then stopped by ours and come through and talk through all the certifications with everybody.
Yeah, so we're gonna, with our new organization that we're in, we're gonna get back out there this year. We want to come out and like what happened yesterday is show people that show our users that 3D Experience SolidWorks is not something to be afraid of. It's actually, I'm gonna put it on my PC, my work PC. That's all we're using now, and I'll come out and do that surfacing presentation in 3D Experience SolidWorks, and you won't even be able to tell that it's that.
Well, that announcement that GP made me excited about being able to have July 1st about having it, go live to where if you've got a SolidWorks user group, or you've got not a user group, but if you've got a SolidWorks license, then you can use that information and use it, get your feet with it, feeling with the experience.
Yeah, and so internally, the employees, we've been the guinea pigs for the last 4 years, and then the maker community has inspired a ton of changes in 3D Swim and some of the other tools, and there is a large contingent of SolidWorks R&D folks that are in there changing these things and modifying it to make it not to say that it wasn't a usable product before, but to give it that SolidWorks feel. And like I said, there's things that on the platform that have allowed us as a team to do what we can do. I mean, when I got hired in 2009 was the last time the certification team grew in size, 14 years ago.
Wow.
And we were doing 9,000 certifications, 6,000 certifications a year. We did 98,000 last year.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm glad that the community's growing.
Yeah.
I'm glad everybody's getting certified now, and it's very impressive. But the 3D platform, like what we were talking about like a year ago, just from using it a year ago, just to today even, it always is getting faster. Like I noticed when I first logged in with the makers, when they come through and said, hey, get on the makers, get your user groups, get them familiar with X Design, X Shape, show them some of the things that can happen in there. And one of the things that excited me was the whole manufacturing capabilities in it. And I've been doing a lot of other things. I know they had talked about they were going to get like laser pathing and even more stuff into the manufacturing playground side of it. So it has been a wonderful experience for me so far.
Yeah, and there's the whole power of the entire Delmia portfolio. Their stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, companies like Boeing and stuff are using that software to make planes. And so if you're able to use just a portion of the tools to make maker stuff, imagine what it can do, right? So, well, I got to get running and help those guys. A couple things. One is I'd love to jump onto a regular one of your episodes, and let's give away some certification exams to
that would
some
be
credits
great. Yeah.
to get some, we can and do all that. And then I don't think we should leave Mike hanging out by himself. But he has to make a deal, and in front of everybody today that's listening is that you get to go for free this year. But next year, the only way you can go is to actually have CSWE.
See, I've been on him too. I've been trying to get him to get. So he's not even got CSWA yet. So we're trying to work to get him to that point. So we're taking baby steps. We're just working our way.
You got a year to go. Yeah. And next year, I'm thinking about where it's at and it's going to be a fun event.
Yeah, don't give anything away if you're not supposed to.
Yeah, we'll say it's in Hawaii. Give some people something to think about, right?
I'm signing up now. When was the...
Exactly. So here's your wristband. Put them on. Don't sell them, by the way, please. So join us for tonight. And then again, next year, if you come, you got to have the ribbon. So, well, he doesn't have the ribbon either, but yeah, it was great joining you guys. And,
Thank you for stopping by, and I think we're out of time. Kirby and him's getting ready to roll in over here, so we've got to pull up shop
over there. So
thank you for stopping by. Thank you for all the wonderful information, and hopefully we'll bring a lot more certified users your way.
Yeah, and if whoever's not here this year, if you're missing out, come next year. Start making plans now.
All right. Thank you so much.
Yep. Thank you.
All right, that's all that we've got for you. We're going to be signing out now so that we can go on and get to our classes. And thank everyone for joining us. And come by and see us at SolidWorks and say hi.